The darkness of space was suffocating, a vast emptiness stretching infinitely in every direction. Somewhere within that void, aboard a cold, metallic ship, Lena shivered in fear. Her small frame huddled in the corner of the containment cell, where she had been trapped since the day the sky cracked open above her village. It had been a day like any other in her quiet town, nestled on the edge of a forest. Lena had been playing by the river, her laughter echoing through the trees, when the ships descended. Massive and menacing, they blotted out the sun, the metallic hum of their engines drowning out all sound. Panic spread through the village like wildfire. People screamed, ran, and fought, but it was futile. The aliens, tall and foreboding with shimmering silver skin, rounded them up swiftly, their eyes cold and calculating. Lena had been separated from her parents, taken into the belly of a ship without so much as a word from her captors. Now, aboard this strange vessel, she trembled, her heart heavy with a mixture of fear and confusion. The Ytharians, as she had overheard one of them say, were advanced beings, far beyond the technological understanding of humans. They communicated in low, guttural sounds, punctuated by eerie clicking noises. She had seen glimpses of other prisoners from different worlds, their eyes wide with the same terror that she felt. But none were spared for long. Days passed, or maybe it was weeks, time meant little in the artificial twilight of her cell. Lena had no idea what fate awaited her, but the whispers from other captives hinted at something dark. Something called Gronok. It was a name spoken in hushed tones, with eyes lowered as though even thinking of it would bring misfortune. Her fears were confirmed when, one day, the cell door opened, and two Ytharian guards stood before her. They were different from the others, taller and clad in ceremonial armor. Their eyes, glowing faintly under the dim lighting, bore into her as they motioned for her to follow. Lena's legs wobbled, her mind reeling with dread, but there was no escape. She was led through the sterile corridors of the ship, her tiny hands clenching into fists to stop their shaking. After what felt like hours, they reached a large, circular chamber. The air inside was heavy with tension. At the center of the room stood a colossal cage, where a shadowed figure loomed, massive and terrifying. Lena caught her breath. Gronok. The beast's glowing eyes were locked onto her, and for a moment, time seemed to freeze. The Ytharians began a low chant, preparing the ritual. Lena, her mind racing, realized the horrifying truth: she was the next offering. But as she was shoved closer to the cage, she noticed something. The creature wasn't moving. It was watching her with an intelligence she hadn't expected, something other than hunger glinting in its eyes. And in that moment, as her fear threatened to swallow her whole, Lena wondered if she was facing something more than just a monster. Lena stood frozen at the edge of the cage, her heart pounding in her chest as she stared into the eyes of Gronok. The creature was massive, its thick, scaled body coiled in the shadows, each movement slow and deliberate. Its eyes glowed a deep amber, fixating on her with an unsettling intensity. Every instinct told her to run, but there was nowhere to go. The Ytharian guards had already withdrawn, their low chanting fading into the background. Lena was alone with the beast. But something was wrong. Gronok didn't pounce. It didn't even growl. Instead, it remained motionless, watching her. Lena's breath came in ragged gasps as she struggled to understand what was happening. The other prisoners had spoken of the creature's brutality, of how it devoured offerings in mere seconds, leaving nothing but blood-stained metal floors. But now, in the silence of the chamber, it seemed almost hesitant. Trembling, Lena took a step back. The chains that bound Gronok rattled softly as the beast shifted, its head lowering slightly as if to get a better look at her. Its gaze wasn't filled with hunger, but with something far more complex: curiosity, maybe even recognition. A strange sensation crept over Lena, a warmth spreading through her body despite the cold air of the chamber. Her fear began to ebb, replaced by a peculiar calm. She could feel something, a presence pressing gently at the edges of her mind. It was as though a door had been opened inside her, a bridge forming between her thoughts and the creature in front of her. Without fully understanding why, she reached out with her hand, her fingers trembling. She didn't touch the cage, but the simple motion seemed to trigger something in Gronok. Its eyes widened slightly, a low rumble emanating from deep within its chest, not a growl, but more like a sound of recognition. Lena blinked in confusion. Was the creature trying to communicate? Suddenly, a voice, not her own, echoed in her mind. It was deep, ancient, and filled with sorrow. Asterisk, you are not like the others. Asterisk. Lena gasped, stumbling back in shock. The voice wasn't coming from the Ytharians or the ship speakers. It was coming from Gronok. She stared at the beast, her pulse racing. Asterisk, what are you? Asterisk, she whispered aloud, though her voice barely carried across the chamber. The response was immediate, though it didn't come in words. Instead, a flood of images filled her mind, visions of distant worlds, of towering creatures like Gronok, once free and majestic. She saw them flying through vast skies, ruling over their own lands, only to be hunted, captured, and chained by the Ytharians. Gronok was no mindless monster. It was a prisoner, just like her. Lena's heart ached with a sudden surge of empathy. She could feel the creature's pain, its loneliness, its rage at being used as a tool of terror. The connection between them deepened, and Lena realized that she wasn't just communicating with Gronok, she was bonded to it. The beast, sensing her understanding, let out another low rumble. The chains binding it seemed to strain against its growing strength, the room trembling with the force of its contained power. Lena, now no longer just prey, stood tall, meeting the creature's gaze. For the first time since her capture, she felt a flicker of hope. Gronok wasn't her enemy. It was her ally. Lena's heart raced, but it wasn't with fear anymore. She stood before Gronok, the connection between them deepening with every passing moment. The massive creature, once seen as a mindless beast, was now something more, a kindred spirit, a fellow prisoner yearning for freedom. As the chains rattled around its enormous form, Lena felt their shared suffering echo through her mind. She wasn't sure how, but she knew that the key to both their survival lay in breaking those chains. The Ytharians watching from above in their observation chamber had no idea. Their arrogance blinded them to what was happening between Lena and Gronok. To them, it was just another ritual, another sacrifice to their powerful, caged beast. But they couldn't sense the growing bond between the child and the creature. They couldn't feel the beast's mounting rage. Lena focused, trying to clear her thoughts. The images Gronok had shown her, flashes of the creature's past, still flickered in her mind. She understood now, Gronok wasn't just a prisoner, it was a guardian, stolen from a faraway world, its purpose corrupted by the Ytharians. They had broken its will, but deep down, the creature's spirit still yearned to be free. "We need to get out of here," Lena whispered, not sure if the beast could fully understand her words. But she felt its response ripple through her, an acknowledgement, a shared desire for escape. Gronok let out a deep growl, its eyes burning brighter, the chains rattling louder as the beast shifted its weight. Suddenly, Lena felt something strange stir within her. It was like a tingling at the edges of her mind, a connection to something deeper within the ship itself. She looked down at her hands and noticed a faint shimmer in the air around them. The bond with Gronok was doing more than just allowing her to communicate, it was unlocking something inside her. The Ytharian technology was reacting to the energy between her and the creature. Taking a deep breath, Lena raised her hands toward the walls of the chamber. She had no idea how, but she could feel the ship's systems, almost as if they were extensions of her own mind. She concentrated, willing the locks on Gronok's chains to release. At first, nothing happened, but then she felt a pulse of energy surge through her, amplified by her bond with the beast. With a sudden, sharp snap, the first of Gronok's chains broke free. The beast let out a deafening roar, shaking the walls of the chamber. Above, the Ytharians looked down in alarm, their calm demeanor shattered. Lena could hear their panicked voices shouting commands, but she didn't stop. She focused harder, pouring all her will into freeing Gronok. One by one, the chains snapped, falling to the ground with loud metallic clangs. The guards rushed into the room, weapons raised, but it was too late. Gronok was free. With a terrifying roar, the beast charged, sweeping the guards aside like toys. Lena, still connected to the creature, felt its joy at finally being unchained. But more than that, she felt its desire for revenge on the ones who had imprisoned it for so long. As Gronok tore through the guards, Lena stumbled back, overwhelmed by the intensity of the creature's emotions. She had unlocked a power she didn't fully understand, and now, with the beast at her side, she was no longer helpless. The chamber shook as Gronok unleashed its fury. Lena looked up, realizing that this was just the beginning. The ship was vast, and many more captives were still imprisoned within its cold, metallic walls. She and Gronok were free, but there was still a battle to fight. The roar of Gronok echoed through the chamber, a powerful sound that resonated deep within Lena's chest. She stood rooted to the spot, awash in adrenaline and awe as the beast tore through the ranks of Ytharian guards. Metal clattered and alien voices shouted in panic, but all Lena could focus on was the surge of energy connecting her to Gronok. We need to free the others. She shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. The bond they shared fueled her determination. As Gronok dispatched the last guard with a swift swipe of its powerful claws, the room fell silent, save for the heavy breathing of the beast and the distant alarms blaring throughout the ship. Without hesitation, Lena dashed toward the exit, her heart racing as she called out to Gronok. The creature followed closely, its massive form filling the doorway as they charged into the corridor. The metallic hallways of the ship were stark and unforgiving, lit by flickering lights that cast eerie shadows on the walls. Lena glanced back at Gronok, and in that instant, they shared a thought: freedom was the only goal. They ran through the winding corridors, where the stench of fear and sweat hung thick in the air. Other prisoners had been scattered throughout the ship, each held in individual cells, their faces pale and worn from despair. As they reached the first cell, Lena pressed her palms against the control panel, instinctively feeling for the mechanism. The energy coursing through her surged as she concentrated, and with a soft click, the door slid open. Inside, a young boy looked up, eyes wide with disbelief. You're freeing us?" Lena nodded, urgency driving her. "Come on. We have to hurry." More prisoners began to emerge, their movements hesitant but quickly gaining strength as hope ignited within them. Gronok stood watch at the entrance, ready to protect them as they fled. Lena felt the beast's presence in her mind, a reassuring force that bolstered her resolve. As they moved deeper into the ship, alarms blared louder, and the Ytharians began to regroup. Lena could sense their anger and confusion, a volatile mix that sent shivers down her spine. Yet, she pressed on, unlocking cell after cell, freeing every captive she could find. The small group quickly grew, and with each release, Lena's confidence swelled. They rounded a corner to find a larger chamber, filled with alien technology that hummed ominously. In the center stood a control room, its screens flashing with images of the ship's layout. "Over here." Lena beckoned, leading the group to the control panel. She felt an overwhelming urge to understand the technology, to make it work for them. As she reached out, Gronok positioned itself protectively behind her, its presence lending her strength. The screens displayed a map of the ship, and Lena's mind raced. She began pressing buttons, her instincts guiding her. A plan formed, a way to redirect the ship's energy, to create a distraction powerful enough to help them escape. With a final press, the ship trembled, lights flickering as systems began to overload. "We have to move." Lena shouted, adrenaline fueling her actions as she led the group back toward the exit. As they raced through the corridors, explosions rang out behind them, the Ytharians scrambling to regain control. But Lena and Gronok were ahead of them now. The group burst through the exit into the coolness of the night, the stars shining brightly above them. Lena turned to Gronok, who stood towering and majestic, the beast now a symbol of their rebellion. Together, they had forged an unbreakable bond. They had freed not just themselves but others who had suffered for too long. In that moment, Lena knew that their journey was far from over. There were other worlds, other beings still under the Ytharian tyranny. And together, she and Gronok would ensure that their voices would be heard, that the fight for freedom would continue. As they stepped into the unknown, Lena felt a surge of hope, ready for whatever challenges lay ahead.